Finally, one of the longest winters we have ever had is behind us. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Neva and today I am wrapping up the books that I put on my winter TBR all the way back in November. I say this every single season of TBR, but I follow the Celtic calendar when it comes to seasons. So for me, winter is comprised of November, December and January. So I had until the end of last month to finally get these books ticked off of my TBR. Because I know that December and January can be a little bit of a topsy-turvy reading month for me, I don't put 6 books on my winter TBR. I generally go for about 4 or 5, and this time I put 5 on there, but I didn't finish all 5. I'll start with the DNF because I did DNF one of the books, and that was Just Like Magic by Sarah Hogle. And honestly, I think this is an author DNF as well because this is the second book of hers that just didn't work for me. This book is about Betty, who is a former Instagram influencer. She used to have a massive following and have PR companies basically hammering down her door looking to work for her, except that everything has started to dry up recently. She's not getting as many offers, her views are kind of tanking, and she is not living the extravagant life that she is putting online. She is actually living paycheck to paycheck, and she's basically living off like rice and beans in order to keep alive. So she's not exactly feeling the holiday spirit. She comes into her apartment one night and puts on a record of All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey, except that she hasn't noticed that it is playing backwards. And this summons the spirit of Hall. To give him his full title, his name is Hall E. Day, and he is basically the Christmas spirit that has been summoned to get Betty back on track. Everybody has got their own Christmas spirit who is kind of tasked with bringing them back to life based on what is going wrong with them, and Hall is her specific one. I thought that the magical realism element of this would be really fun. It would be really interesting because I've read romance books that had a magical realism element to it. I have read the 2 Ashley Poston books and really enjoyed those. But something about this one just did not work. I feel like there was too much of a gap in the spirits of Hall and in the spirit of Betty. It was really just too far from the grumpy sunshine. And I feel like Hall was almost like a toddler on like a sugar rush. He was too energetic, he was too hyper, he was too over enthusiastic about everything. But Betty is spending Christmas with her family, so she goes back to her childhood home, hangs out with her family, hangs out with her sister and her parents, and none of these people were in any way enjoyable or entertaining for me. If I had to pick somebody, it would probably be Betty's grandmother, because she was very much kind of like your socialite, loads of money, has no idea what to do with it, and that is a trope that I have seen done so many times and done well so many times, and it was kind of done well here, but overall this family did not sit well with me. They felt very kind of Kardashian-like in their morals and in their values and in their ways of looking at the world, and that's not a family that I follow. It's not a family that entertained me, so the book didn't entertain me overall. I could not get on board with the writing style. I couldn't get on board with the characters. I could not get on board with any of the vibes of this book. And that was a similar feeling that I had to You Deserve Each Other. So I think that this is just a goodbye for Sarah Hogle for me. Now that we've done the DNF, should we talk about the big elephant in the room and the one that disappointed me the most of what I did finish? I was so looking forward to Icebreaker. I really anticipated it the whole year. I kept putting it off because I thought I need to read this in the middle of winter when it's cold, when I'm in the mood for kind of chill and ice and snow, and this did not deliver at all. This is such a divisive book. I know that the besties on YouTube, they are so divided between this book that it is literally splitting them in half. Brittany and Neva absolutely adore this book. Kelsea and Rainey want to fling it into the ocean. And honestly, I'm on this side of the fence. I also want to fling this book into the ocean. It follows Stassi or Stas or Stacy or Anna, or she has like 9,000 nicknames that I can never keep track of. Pick one, stick to it. And also Nate. Stacy is a figure skater and Nate is the captain of the school's ice hockey team. One of the ice rinks at their university has been vandalized, so the whole school is now down to one ice hockey rink and everyone has to practice on it together. This is causing a little bit of a problem because Stacy and Nate do not get along with each other. They've never gotten along with each other. And this animosity, when they start to meet each other, genuinely lasted for about 30 seconds before Stacy basically hopped on top of him. I do not think that this book was well written. I do not think that the sex scenes in this book were engaging or well written or well thought out. I do not agree with a lot of the things that had happened in this book. I particularly didn't like the character of Aaron, who is Stacey's kind of skating partner, and he is so cruel and so mean to her. And he basically gaslights her into thinking that her body is too big for him to pick up when they're doing lifts, or that she's not going to fit into her skating costume because she's eaten a burger for dinner. And that's so incredibly awful to see, especially if this is a book that is aimed at a young adult or a new adult audience, people who are in their late teens to early 20s, who might already be suffering with some form of body dysmorphia or with body issues or with self-confidence issues. Reading that and seeing that is absolutely not going to help anybody further. This book felt to me like no plot, just sex. And I like to have a plot in a book. I like to have something actually happening to these characters. I like to have something that they are actually doing rather than each other. And I wouldn't even say that some of the sex scenes are well written. There is one that takes place in the backseat of a completely overcrowded Uber. And apparently Stacey is so loud that her mouth has to be covered over with a hand. And there's absolutely no way that even in the backseat of an Uber where everybody is a little bit raucous, everybody is drunk, there's absolutely no way on this earth that nobody is going to notice that that is happening. Whereas they completely got away with it, subterfuge and everything, and that felt so unrealistic. But something that really, really annoyed me about it was the ending and the epilogue. Now, I'm not a fan of a pregnancy epilogue anyway, so this didn't rub me up the right way. But then when you find out that Stacey had been adopted and she wanted this to be the way that she had a family. She wanted to adopt children. She didn't want to go through pregnancy. She wanted to bring a child into her family that had been given up by its birth family. And then she's pregnant in the epilogue. Now, it can be argued that they just fall pregnant and they plan to adopt in the future, but I thought that after such an emphasis had been placed on Stacey explicitly saying, and I would like to adopt in the future, I would like my children to be adopted, it was like we had picked up the plot of this book or any plotting that we had done and flung it out the window. It also irritates me a little bit when British authors write books that are set in the US or US authors write books that are set in the UK, because the cultures are so different, because the customs and the traditions are so different. And also I feel like there wasn't enough of a knowledge about ice hockey. There wasn't enough of a knowledge about figure skating. It was basically like, I know an ice hockey romance is selling like hotcakes right now. I know that people are falling over themselves to get to hockey romances, so I'm gonna write a hockey romance. It didn't work for me. This whole book was probably my biggest disappointment of the whole year. I promise I'm finished complaining. I'll go on to a better book because I absolutely adored Lovelight Farms by B.K. Borison. This completely blew me away. I don't think I expected to love this as much as I did. This book is about Stella and Luca. Stella and Luca have been best friends for about 10 years when Stella first moved to Inglewood. Stella owns a Christmas tree farm, and the farm is not doing super well financially at the moment. So she enters a competition in which she can win a $10,000 prize and put that towards keeping the farm afloat, giving her workers a little bit more of a raise, and just keep everything ticking over. The problem is that on the application, she has kind of made a white lie and told the competition judges that she runs the farm with her boyfriend. But Stella has been single for quite some time. So she asks Luca to step up to the plate and, while one of the judges is in town, to pretend to be her partner. So they've had to go around town and basically tell everyone in the town, oh, we've just gotten together a couple of months ago. And when I tell you that the entire town basically celebrated this like it was the second coming of Christ, that is not an exaggeration. There were people who had gone out of their way to shake hands with both of them and say, oh, I knew that this was coming. Oh, I had a feeling you two would work it out. I felt that the reaction of the townspeople was a little bit OTT, but it also really reminded me of when Lorelai and Luke get together in Gilmore Girls. It was very much a similar aspect of that, without the bet that everybody had of what's going to happen if you break up, whose side are you taking. I thought that the chemistry between Stella and Luca was really good. You can tell that these two have been friends for such a long time. You can tell that they're really comfortable in each other's presence. You can tell that they really truly care about one another, which is why when the inevitable third act breakup came along, I found it really hard to get on board with. It didn't seem like the kind of third act breakup that would make sense in this situation. It didn't seem like the kind of thing that these characters would have done or thought about. So I really had to push through that one. Thankfully, that third act breakup didn't last for very long. They did get back together quite soon afterwards. But I did kind of roll my eyes and go, really? That's the road we're going down? One gripe that I had about this book is that it didn't feel particularly Christmassy for a book that is set on a Christmas tree farm. It could have been set in mid-August and I wouldn't have noticed that it wasn't set on a Christmas tree farm, mainly because there wasn't a whole lot of mention of Christmas, of twinkling lights, of like Christmas menus in the local cafe. I just feel like it needed that little bit more of an injection of the Christmas magic and Christmas spirit in it for it to work out. There was also a Thanksgiving scene at Stella's father and her stepmother's house that was really interesting to read. It was a little hard to read because of the actions of one of the characters, but I feel like it was something that a lot of people are going to associate with and a lot of people are going to find their own family in. I am definitely going to keep up with this series. I've got the 2 next books of it on my Kindle, and I know that the 4th book in this series is coming out in June or July of 2024. Definitely one I'm going to look out for. Another one from the TBR that I really enjoyed was Make You Mine This Christmas by Lizzie Huxley Jones. I've known Hux for a really long time. We've been friends on Twitter for a while, but I tried not to let that impact on my enjoyment of this book, and truly I could separate the two of them here. This is about Half, who is living in London, and her parents have gone away for Christmas, kind of forgetting that she was supposed to be coming home to them. Hux goes out to a party to kind of drown her sorrows with her housemate Ambrose, and while she is there, she bumps into Christopher. She's never met him before, but she and Christopher end up kissing each other in the kitchen at the party, basically so that Christopher can save face in front of his ex-girlfriend, who is also there. Christopher needs somebody to come home with him and convince his parents that he is doing okay after the breakup, so Half decides, I have nothing else to do for Christmas, I'm gonna head back home with Christopher. While she is there, she meets his sister Kit and completely falls head over heels for her. Obviously, this is now an issue because Kit thinks that Half is dating Christopher, and things really start to get complicated as Half tries to keep her feelings in tow. There were a couple of things about this book that I didn't really love. I didn't love Ambrose as a housemate. I thought they weren't a really good friend to Half either. Ambrose kept tweeting about the situations that Half was finding herself in and doing polls with their followers about what would you do in this instance, what would you do in this instance. And I really didn't think that that was very fair, especially when Half had told them, I'd really like you not to do this anymore. Ambrose just kept going. And I really don't think that this is a friendship that should have been continued. If Half decided to move out of the house, I really don't think that they should keep in contact anymore. I really wasn't a fan of Ambrose the whole way through this book. There was just nothing about them that really warmed me to them. I also think it's really interesting to see how other people spend Christmas, how the other half lives. And it's such a great way to do that when you are in a completely different family and they have different customs to you and they get up at different times and they eat dinner at different hours of the day. And you might think that this is complete alien behavior, but to them, that is just their routine that they're used to. And you can really see Half trying to adjust to, oh, before we go downstairs, we get fully dressed. We never go downstairs in pajamas. Or we have dinner at 4 o'clock rather than at 1 o'clock. I hope that that's not too late for you. I really loved watching Half really try to get on with Christopher's family, especially when his family are quite well-to-do. His family are quite upper class, I would say. So they do kind of tend to look down on Half a little bit. Obviously, they try not to show it, but it does shine through in the book. I thought it was really interesting to see Half try and ingratiate in the family, and just nothing working out. There were a couple of too coincidental parts of this book that feel a little bit spoilery to tell you, especially in the first third of the book when Half is at the train station at a bookshop. I feel like that was a little bit too coincidental and I knew instantly where we were going to go with that, but overall this was a really great book. I know that it is also a similar plot to The Christmas Swap by Talia Samuels. I bought that book last Christmas, but I didn't get to read it because I thought if I read the two of them in too quick a succession, I might just get the plots a little bit too combined with one another and tell something that happened in this book that didn't happen in this book. So I have got it ready for next Christmas and I'm hoping it's going to hit the same heights. Finally is the book on this list that I finished the most recently, as in 2 days ago, and that was Winter by Ali Smith. It is the second book of the seasonal quartet, and I've been reading these with my two friends, Shannon from 155 Books and Amelia from Amelia Barlow Books. Unfortunately, this one did not hit the heights that Autumn did for me. I don't know what it was. The writing style was pretty similar to Autumn. I think it was mainly the characters. Have you ever read a book where you notice that a character is quite similar to somebody that you know in real life, or you might have known them in a previous rendition of your life, and you didn't like them as a person then, so reading them just kind of reminds you what they were like as a person? That was the feeling that I got when I was reading about Sophia in this book. She was quite old. She was born in the 1940s, so I think at the time this book was set, she was in her 70s or so. And the entire time that I was reading her, I felt like she was really abrasive. She was really confrontational. I felt like she was falling out with so many people in her life for the pettiest of reasons. It was a real okay boomer mentality, which I don't particularly like subscribing to, but sometimes the signs are just there. In this book, Sophia's son, Arthur, is coming home to Cornwall to spend Christmas with her, and she is expecting him to come with his girlfriend, Charlotte. The issue is that Art and Charlotte have actually broken up with each other a couple of months ago, and he hasn't told his mother that that happened yet. So he decides to hire somebody to basically be his girlfriend. Now, I love a fake dating trope, but this was not exactly fake dating. While he is on his way home from town one day, Art bumps into Lux at a bus stop and basically gives her £1,000 to pretend to be his girlfriend. I thought that was a little bit out of the scope of normality because, like most fake dating romances, that is not a situation that is ever going to happen. However, Lux takes on the £1,000 and heads back to Cornwall with Art for Christmas. Another really combative thing about Sophia can be shown when she meets Lux for the first time, when she notices from Lux's accent that she's not English, but she decides, you know what, your English sounds good enough that I'm just going to accept you anyway. I myself am an immigrant. I do speak pretty good German. My German is pretty strong. But if I heard that, I think it would send me into a downward spiral that would last for me for about 3 months afterwards. I really didn't enjoy the atmosphere of this book. I wanted something that was really celebratory. I wanted something that was really warm and inviting. The Christmas feel that you would get around winter time. But unfortunately, we ended up with the feeling of a January. It was very bleak. It was very dark. It was very cold and depressing. And I think that a lot of that was contributed to by Sophia. The one Christmas that we do see is Christmas of 1977. This date is particularly important for Sophia because it is the date that Charlie Chaplin died. And I really thought that this whole book, in the flashbacks, we would be dealing a whole lot with Charlie Chaplin, with his cinematography, with his filmography, and with his big impact on the film world as a whole. But it never really came to that. It was just, oh, Charlie Chaplin died today. That's sad. It's Christmas. This was my least favourite of the series so far. I know I've only read 2, but this was definitely my least favourite. But we are going to keep going with the series. We are going to go into spring a little bit closer towards the end of spring, I think. So let's see how we get on with it. Those are the books that I put on my winter TBR back in November and how I actually managed to do with them. Have you read any of these books, or what was the best book that you read over winter? If you would love to leave me a comment but you can't think of anything you'd like to say, then just leave a snowflake emoji. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.